Hi everyone, I'm Gautam aka Seek of Wisdom. I'm a manifestation coach, and in this video, we're going to be talking a little bit about the importance of maintaining boundaries. Now, before I do so, I like to remind you guys I am available for coaching. So I offer hourly, monthly, email, and DM coaching along with premium coaching right now, which is basically unlimited calls and unlimited DMs. I also have two different Facebook groups. I have a free Facebook group where I upload resources from time to time for you guys to use, as well as my YouTube videos in advance. And I also have a paid Facebook group where I come up live 4 times a month, answer your queries, as well as upload exclusive materials and resources for you guys to use. And I also have a mailing list where I post articles from time to time, as well as my latest offers for coaching. And also, I have many different bundles and masterclasses, along with a newly developed custom affirmation tape service that I'm providing right now. So, if you guys need any information on that, feel free to email me or reach out to me via Instagram, and I'll be more than happy to guide you guys on the pricing and what plans might be suitable for you. So without further ado, guys, let's get to it. So what led me to this video was just a reflection of my own journey in maintaining boundaries and developing them, and how that came to be. And I realized, like, it hasn't been a journey where, like, it was an instant one. Like, I had to develop it over a period of years, and a lot of it was due to societal programming, how I was raised, and of course that whole people pleasing mentality was there as well. And I really wanted to talk about this specific topic today because I can really tell a huge difference in my behavior, and also the way I interact with people has significantly changed over the last 6 years, I would say. And and that's for the better, I would say, because I used to be someone who didn't really have boundaries. I used to just waste my time away by entertaining people that in retrospect I really shouldn't have entertained. But again, there's a huge lesson in all of that. But I really reflected on how, if I were to be put in similar situations now, I would immediately put up a boundary or remove myself out of the situation. And what really led to all these things was, I didn't develop and maintain a boundary just for the sake of it, or just for the show of it all, right? Like, I just didn't want to do something just to say, like, hey, I have a boundary, like, back off, right? Like, that's not really the intention here. But rather, the main intent of maintaining a boundary for me was to maintain my peace of mind and my happiness. Like, that's it. Simple as that. For me, maintaining a boundary is primarily due to maintaining a peace of mind and happiness. Because at the end of the day, that's what I want, like, to have throughout the day, week, month, and years, and so on and so forth, right? I really want to have a peace of mind, and I want to be happy at the end of the day. And if something isn't giving me that, then I do give myself the permission to remove myself or to put up a boundary to prevent it from affecting me, right? And that's not to say that life will always be smooth, and of course there will always be ups and downs and things like that. But in areas where you can minimize it, in areas where you can like really have a say in it, and maintain a boundary to maintain, like, get that peace and happiness, I would say go for it. Like, just do whatever you have to do. Because the thing is, like, if you don't, like, take charge of it, like, if you're in autopilot mode, you are going to let the societal programming take over everything for you. And depending on where your subconscious beliefs are, like, folks may come and into your life and just kind of disrupt your peace and happiness. And not having that boundary could lead to a lot of, like, time wasted as well. So if I were you, like, I would really work on that. But how does one go about the process, right? So first, get clear on why you are developing a boundary, right? Is it due to a lack of respect from a group of people, or is it due to you just, again, wanting a peace of mind, or to have a better grip on your time schedules and so on, right? Because that, again, like, plays into it as well. So firstly, get clear on why you are putting up a boundary with a group of people, or with a person, or it could be with an organization like your company or school, for example. Why are you putting up that boundary, right? Get clear on that. The reason why I am asking you to guys to do this first is because you might be confronted by folks down the line, when folks might be asking you, like, hey, why are you doing this? Like, why are you like kind of like acting in a different way right now? Because oftentimes when you kind of change, immediately the 3D may not reflect that. And folks might kind of question you, and your doubts and fears might also be reflected through others as well, because everyone is you pushed out. And when they do so, you want to have a clear reason for doing things, right? You just don't want to do things for the sake of it. So having a clear reason as to why you are establishing your boundary really, really, really comes in handy there. So there's that aspect to it. So secondly, how do you go about reinforcing or enforcing that boundary, right? So you have to remind yourself. This is where your inner discipline, your inner strength, and positive self-talk and all those things comes into play. So what I would do in this situation is to remind myself, like, hey, okay, next time when XYZ situation happens, like, I am not going to like act the way I used to. I'm going to put up a boundary saying that, what, like, I'm not going to be participating in this for XYZ reasons, basically. And so that's what I would be doing, right? So for example, for me, one thing is that, like, if certain time schedule doesn't work with my friends, for example, I might in the past may just go with it, because I valued, like, meeting people, for example, over, like, my own mental peace and happiness. I might feel super tired, for example, super drained, and I might just go with the flow. I might just go with the flow, simply because I just don't want to lose out on things, maybe, and I just want to like not be perceived in a certain way, like antisocial and things like that. But if you ask me right now, like, the first thing I'll do is, one, check my schedule, and two, like, I would ask myself, okay, do I want to spend time with this group of people, right? And I care about how I perceive myself, and I care about more about my well-being, more so than how others might perceive me or how others might treat me and things like that. And so by doing this, I am potentially saving myself from situations where I don't really enjoy myself, yet I'm there, that type of situations, basically. Because in the past, I have had situations where I went to certain events, but I didn't enjoy myself. I went just for the sake of it, just to please a few folks and things like that. And I realized, like, how big of a waste of time that was. And more so that when I do those types of things, I don't really respect myself either, because I view myself in a certain way, right? Not consciously per se, but subconsciously it does signal that, okay, I don't value myself, I don't value my time and things like that. So these days I'll just put up a boundary saying, hey, you know I just don't want to be there, because of it's not my jam. It just don't resonate with certain events, and I don't want to be there. Like, I'm cool with it, right? And secondly, when you have a code of certain kind, right, no matter what happens, you stick to it. That's one way of reinforcing boundaries. So for example, for me, that would be with alcohol, for example. If you know me, you guys would know that I don't really drink. Like, I've never drunk. Like, I don't know the differences between, like, a wine and a beer and a whiskey, right? And yeah, like, it's just like something that I've had a very strong stance on ever since I was a teenager. And I don't know why and where it kind of started off, to be honest, but I knew that that is not the track or route I wanted to go in. And throughout my teens, like, one thing that was going on was, like, there was so many instances where guys would ask me, hey, why don't you come for a beer with me, why don't you come and drink with us, and things like that. And I used to feel bad at one point for, like, saying no to those things. And I used to think, like, am I being antisocial, am I pushing my friends away, and things like that. And I had to stop myself at one point, those kinds of talks, and tell myself, what, you are prioritizing yourself, you are being authentic to yourself, and you are sticking to your code. And what that showed me, like, what that made me do in my mind was to respect myself more, right? Subconsciously, I started to respect myself more, because I am enforcing a moral code that I came up with myself. And when I did that, like, I was able to really respect myself more, and it boosted my self concept. And I was really able to feel that others demeanors kind of changed towards me. Because why? Because I was respecting myself more, and that got pushed out as well. And the same thing with, like, like, sleep times and whatnot. Like, when I'm sleeping, if you're my friend again, you will know this. I normally put my phone in like airplane mode. I'll just turn off the Wi-Fi, simply because most of my friends call me in WhatsApp. And I don't do this, because I don't like like getting calls or anything like that. It's not like I don't like my friends or anything like that. Like, I love my friends, and they really love me as well, I hope so. But um one of the reasons I do this is because, like, when I sleep, I really need the sleep. Like, I can't afford to have any disruptions or distractions of any sorts, because when I'm like out of the sleep, like, I don't get enough deep sleep, right? Like, when you wake up, like, out from like a deep sleep, like, and go back to bed, it's not going to be that level of that quality of sleep anymore. And so when I sleep, I give myself that time to really, like, just turn off everything and just go to bed. And if someone calls during you that time, you can always like reach out to them later, like, no worries at all. Like, that's something I had to kind of like reinforce and kind of like practice, because at one point it was like, oh no, what if this person calls, and what if I'm not able to um you know wake up at on time and things like that. There used to be times when I used to be awake, really till late. Even if I felt sleepy, I used to be awake just to have conversations with someone and things like that. That's something that I wouldn't do right now, right? Simply because, like, I value, again, like, my well-being and my mental peace and happiness more so than anything else, right? And earlier I also talked about the importance of, like, maintaining a boundary, because it really adds to your authenticity, right? When you don't enforce a boundary, you might end up doing things that makes you feel less authentic. And part of you will always feel like you are being fake to yourself, right? You will feel like you're missing out on who you are, and, like, you might feel like there's just something missing there, and you're not just acting true to yourself, and that you are just being fake and things like that. And again, because everyone is you pushed out, people can feel this vibe off of you, no matter how hard you try, right? So the reason why I'm saying this is because there's power in being authentic, because when you are authentic, right, you attract genuine people into your life. You attract people who completely resonate with you 100%. And the relationships that comes out of you being authentic is going to be relationships that are really, really strong, and that will last you for a lifetime. I can assure you that, because I have forged friendships. Like, the longest friendships that I ever have right now are the ones that I forged when I was really authentic. It might have been a post I made on Insta, or it might be a stance that I took on certain matters. I don't like to be politically right just for the sake of it. For example, like, even with my friends, like, like, one thing is that I always tell my friends, like, okay, it's completely fine to have a difference in views, but make no mistake, like, I will tell you my views if you ask me for it, right? If we are in a discussion and you ask me about a certain my view on a certain subject matter, for example, I'll tell you my views just as it is. Why? Because in being authentic, right, if you are really going to be in my reality, right, you will really, like, recognize, like, hey, okay, you are being true to yourself, and, like, I'm going to attract individuals because of that, right? And if you find that, okay, you may not really resonate with my views, then there will be events that kind of lead you to kind of gradually exit my life. And that's not like, and I don't really feel bad about it, because again, you attract and keep people who are 100% genuine, and who 100% resonate with you, and it's like a perfect union. So I feel that the being authentic has more pros than cons, I would say. So for example, like, I like to explore things like aliens and extraterrestrials and things like that. And everyone has their own views on those kinds of things. But when I speak to people, like, one way I really connected with my authentic tribe is by speaking my views on these types of subject matters, and really like connecting with them then. And like, and this allows others to be also be comfortable with you, and they can also share their views. And it just builds up a perfect union, and it attracts a community of people together. And it's really, when you put it into practice, like, the experience is really beautiful. So this is one really thing that like one really good thing about maintaining a boundary is that you also, it kind of pushes you to be authentic to yourself. And I think that it's really something that you should practice, because it's brings a lot of benefit. And maintaining a boundary also reflects well in your self concept. You don't you know you prevent yourself from being a pushover. So for example, let's take the issue of SP, right? In manifesting an SP, like people always, if the SP calls during like ungodly hours, for example, like maybe like 2 a.m in the morning or 3 and things like that, like if you are coming from a lax state, or if you don't really have a good self concept, you might actually pick up those calls even if you are like sleeping, and even if you feel tired, because you might think like, well, they don't call me often, so I'm going to make the most out of it. I'm going to milk this experience, so to speak, and I'm going to really have the most out of the situation. But the issue with this is that you're not respecting yourself, right? You have to have the confidence to put up a boundary and say, hey, like call me later. Like, you're calling me in the middle of the night, could you call me at like at daytime, when I might be available? I'm available at so and so time, why don't you call me then instead? you know um, and what this does, like when you put up such boundaries, what this does is that it kind of like tells them that, hey, you're not a pushover, and b, like you are a person with schedules to go after and things like that, and that you are not the primary person in their life, basically, right? So this is with regards to SP, in case if it's not clear. And when you do this, like like you're not putting them on a pedestal, you're putting yourself on the pedestal, you're prioritizing yourself. Maintaining your boundary always allows you to prioritize yourself above anyone else's. And guess what, because everyone is you pushed out, they're going to prioritize you as well. And so with the SP example, when you do these kinds of things, one, they tend to respect you more, right? And two, they're going to like really like come at it from a place like, okay, I have to respect this person as well. And it kind of changes the energy dynamics between you and your SP. They tend to recognize it. They might not like consciously like realize it, but subconsciously that shift is definitely impacting your dynamics with your SP, where it's more like you are holding the keys right now rather than your SP. And this isn't like like a game of chess, but like this does happen. The dynamic does change, where you are in control of it, and this is your reality, right? So everyone is there to serve you. So ideally speaking, you want to be always prioritizing yourself and put yourself in a position where everyone else is serving you and your needs and whatever you need at that time, rather than like you being there for others. Because again, you are not secondary to anyone in your reality, you are the star of your reality. And if you feel secondary to anyone in this reality, it's because you are making it so, right? You have put that kind of like perception out there. So it's time to take back your power by maintaining boundaries, and like maintaining your mental peace and happiness. And putting up like boundaries. And what this does is it also allows you to be authentic in the process, and really kind of like prioritize yourself and things like that, right? It has a lot of benefits. And I guess the question sometimes folks have is, well, hey, if I do such things, wouldn't like people be offended? Like, wouldn't I offend a few people here and there? And like, doesn't it come off as a little bit arrogant, so to speak? And I always tell this to people, like, you know again, the right people will come, right? If certain people don't resonate with you, they will leave, right? Like, what isn't for you, so to speak, will kind of just leave your life. And what is for your life, like like genuine authentic people who are in perfect union and harmony with you, they will come into your life. So if someone goes away, and if they're not like super vital in your life, right? Let's say it's like a friend from school times, or something like that, who's not really in your life anymore, and things like that, right? Let them go, because that void will be filled up by someone even better. But if it's someone who you want like to really be have in your life, like let's say like an SP, for example, if you're putting up a boundary, and if your SP is like leaving as a result of it, don't worry, everyone is you pushed out, like you can like make them come back, like you can conform them into their ideal version, and bring them back into your life. Like when the current version of your SP leaves, do not worry, because what that does is simply making space for the ideal version of them to come into your life, right? So you don't have to be concerned about it in any way. Like when they leave, when you put up a boundary, for example, what I would the way I would perceive it is simply tell myself that, okay, the current version has left, which is going to be filled up by the ideal version of the SP. The universe rarely likes a void, right? It always likes to fill it up with something. So when one thing leaves, it's going to be filled up with something even better, right? Especially if you are, prioritizing yourself and things like that, like it often fills it up with something much, much, much better. So, if I were you, I wouldn't be concerned too much about it. And, don't view this as being arrogance, but rather view this as being confident, you being authentic, right? You don't have to really like shrug your shoulders, and, don't have to shrink in every single space, right? You can be your own self, and, you can, reinforce the boundaries, and you don't have to sacrifice anything, for you to be loved, and, like be admired and just be respected by others. We oftentimes think that, we have to kind of like shrink into spaces, or kind of just, if someone like maybe jokes about us that we find offensive or things like that, we feel like we need to let it slip, simply because, we want to kind of maintain a cohesive unity with others and things like that. But again, like, if being authentic to yourself means putting up a boundary there, go ahead and do it, because what it does is that it allows you to be in your true authentic self, which makes you, live out, the best life possible, right? And you're not letting anything affect you in the process as well. So if I were you, I wouldn't bother, like, with all the concerns and things like that. I would just go ahead and, do it, like, put up that boundary wherever necessary, because there are more benefits than, like disadvantages, in my opinion. And again, it might be a process. This kind of thinking doesn't just happen overnight, and I'll be the first one to admit it. Like I said, this has been a journey for me ever since like 2016. And one thing I realized was, like as I did this more and more, like, it really changed the dynamic. I felt different. Like I felt more confident, I felt more assertive, and I felt really powerful. And I, always, tend to put myself first. And that felt so liberating. It really, really felt so liberating, because at the end of the day, I am living life in my own terms. Like no one really has the keys to my life. No one is really dictating me what to do or what not to do, right? And that doesn't mean like I'm always like, disobeying people for the sake of it or anything like that. Again, the purpose of it is very important, right? For me, it was maintaining my peace and happiness and being authentic to myself, so that I may attract, the best possible tribe of people and best possible experiences and things like that, right? Earlier, like, I was doing a podcast with Hillary Jubilee as well, and we kind of touched on it as well, because, being true to yourself, sometimes, may not be the easiest of things, but it really makes a lot of difference, right? Because when you are not true to yourself, you might find yourself in situations where, there's just a lot of, um, things that are going on that you might, that might easily drain you, that, you might really find that, to be very repulsive. And you might also fail in a lot of things when you're not, authentic to yourself and things like that, right? So the context that we were talking about it was from the perspective of like, going into school and choosing subjects which you're not really good at, because someone told you to do so, right? That was the context that Hillary and I were talking about it from. And that in that, like, we kind of realized like, hey, like, because we had really a similar experience, like it kind of just, clicked again for me, in the sense that, like, when you're not true to yourself, it also really affects your success in everything as well. So if I were you, I would really, really focus on, like staying true to yourself, because again, it really contributes to everything in your life, the type of people you find, and your mental peace and happiness. And a lot of it really comes down to having boundaries. When, people tell you to do, hey, what, take this, you have to put up a boundary, or you have to, like kind of be assertive and say, I'm going to do this because this is who I am, And like you have to put up a boundary in the sense that, like, you have to tell people like, hey, only tell me what to do when I ask you for it. Like, you don't have to like exactly tell me to do what to do all the time, for example. And and that's with everything. Like, it's one of those things where it might come off as being, again, arrogant and things like that, but like if you don't do this, the price of not being authentic or not maintaining a boundary might sometimes be more than you expect, and that is not really worth paying, in my opinion. So again, there's a lot of advantages for maintaining boundaries, and it's not just like with friends and not going for a movie or not accepting your SP's calls and things like that. This comes in all shapes and sizes, right? Like on Instagram, like you would have seen many manifestation coaches, even myself included, like we don't really accept DMs or questions in DMs which are not like coaching related, for example. And for certain folks, it might come off as being very arrogant, or that being very disrespectful and things like that. But if we as coaches like don't maintain that boundary, for example, we would really like drain ourselves, to be honest. And that was one thing I really had to learn, in the sense that, like, in the beginning I used to answer everyone's questions in the DMs, but what it did for me was that I felt super drained at the end of the day, right? And to one person it might just be one question, right? But when you're reading like essays after essays in your DMs, trust me, it really becomes a draining kind of experience, to be honest. And so what I did was I had to put up a boundary, like, if it's not a coaching question, either put it in the Facebook group or put it in my comments and I'll answer it. Like, it's not like I'm not going to answer whatever that you are saying. But of course, there are certain things that folks don't want to put in those types of platforms, and I completely understand that, where they are coming from and everything. But again, at the end of the day, I had to have like make tough calls at those times where I have told people like, I'm sorry, but I can't answer, because otherwise, like, I'm not being true to myself. And also there's that aspect of being like fair to my paid clients as well. So for these types of reasons, I have to have a boundary. you know and of course there's that possibility or risk of potentially upsetting someone in the process. And it's not that, like, as coaches, like, people are insensitive or something. I'm certainly not that type of guy. But I recognize that there is that risk of upsetting folks. But at the end of the day, like, I am willing to do that because like, I need to prioritize my peace and happiness. Again, I have to be true to myself, right? If I, again, like, cross that boundary, I might perceive myself as a pushover, not consciously but subconsciously, which might affect a lot of things in my mind. And that might kind of trickle into other areas of my life, maybe with SP or with friends or family as well. And it's one thing, and for me it's like a domino effect, right? If I'm like being inauthentic in one area and I start to view myself subconsciously as being a little bit of a pushover, guess what? It trickles down into all areas. It becomes a domino effect. And so maybe I might recognize, like, maybe a family member is like trying to take advantage of me, or maybe one of my friends is like like really making fun of me, for example, and things like that, right? And like, and it kind of like builds up, and before I know it, it becomes a very strong belief. So we have to cut it at its root in order to like prevent it from growing and becoming much worse, possibly. And that means at times making tough calls, right? And I want you guys to know, but that's fine. At the end of the day, as long as you're coming from a place of love, you are fine, right? In this case, you're coming from a place of love for yourself, and that's fine. And again, if some people are going to leave your life as a result of that, don't worry about it, because again, it's going to be filled up by someone much much better, who are in complete alignment with you. And in the case of an SP, or in the case of someone who you really want in your life, you can always see it as, okay, the current version of them is leaving, but what is going to be replaced is a ideal version of them that is perfect for me, right? So you can always see it that way, and you can always set the intention for that, and they will fill up that role as such. And yeah, and again, this is not something that I would expect you guys to enact immediately, but this is definitely worth looking into, and worth like developing, and and take your time, right? There's no rush at all. but again, look into it, and let me know your thoughts below as well. So guys, we've come to this end of this video. If this video resonated with you, be sure to drop a like and a comment down below. Turn on your bell notification so that you guys will know when I upload a new video every single week. And the 1000 subscriber giveaway is still ongoing. So it's a 1 week DM coaching giveaway for one lucky winner. All you have to do is, subscribe to this channel and, follow me on Instagram. And when we reach 1,000 subs, I will be announcing a winner for the 1 week DM coaching giveaway. Again, all you have to do is subscribe to this channel and follow my Instagram page, and you guys are automatically in. And we are very, very close right now, so I'm really excited to announce a winner really soon. And thank you guys so much for all of your love and support. 2023 has been amazing thus far, and yeah, thank you guys.